Hello everyone, I'm Matthias and today we're talking about Lemonade. I see Lemonade as a company that is an exponentiator of their unit economics and their value creation processes. A company that is a small actor in a huge market and a company that is very loved by its users. Now, I think these three elements, the exponentiation of their value creation processes, their status as a very small player in a very large market, and also their ability to create joy to their customers proposes very interesting value propositions to their investors and to their customers alike, setting the company up for long-term growth. There are a lot of different estimates of the market size of total global insurance. Some say 7 trillion, some say 9 trillion. Whichever way you spin it, the global insurance market is very, very large. Also, just to sort of conceptualize this, insurance as a percentage of GDP in OECD countries is about 6.2%. So regardless of how you measure this, insurance is a large market. Also, we have Lemonade, the company that we're looking at today, at a market cap of $5.8 billion. So a company that is barely scratching the surface of the annual insurance spent in market cap, and also not even scratching the surface in terms of their revenue generation, generating $526 million of revenue in 2024. Now, before we hit into that, this video is for general information purposes only and does not constitute investment advice or solicitation to buy, sell, or hold any securities. I am an employee of NewDeal Invest, and NewDeal Invest owns Lemonade. However, the views expressed in this video are my own and have not been approved or reviewed by NewDeal Invest. The information provided is based on public sources which may contain errors. Forecasts and price targets are subject to uncertainty. Past performance is no guarantee for future results. I may hold positions or trade the securities mentioned. Now, I'm looking very interested at Lemonade. I think this company is a wonderful company. It possesses the core fundamentals that I see very similar to companies like New Holdings. And I will make a separate video on New. I think the case for New is very much the same as it is for Lemonade. This AI cloud native company that is incredible at exponentiating their unit economics in order to yield bigger returns for investors and yield better products to their users. Now, you've heard me talking about insurance and how large the market is, how small Lemonade is. They have the ability to exponentiate their unit economics. We will look at that. Now I'm going to play a clip of the CEO talking about how ripe the market for insurance is for disruption. Let's take a look at what he has to say.
And then you say, okay, what is the biggest industry in the world that could be transformed by it? You'd come to insurance very quickly.
Yeah.
It's bigger than pharma. It's bigger than defense. It's bigger than oil. It's bigger than chips. It's bigger than SaaS. It is crazy big, bigger than Hollywood, bigger than any industry, bigger than agriculture. It's crazy big. You'd quickly, if you went through the list, you'd hit insurance very much on the top of it. And then if you ask yourself the question, okay, insurance is a statistical product, nothing physical. It's all about intelligence and data. It's born to be disruptive. It is perhaps the most disruptible industry in the world. Who's the number one player best placed to take all of that AI and disrupt this huge industry? And I think in fairness, you'd come to that answer at Lemonade very, very quickly. There aren't that many of us around. So
insurance is ripe for disruption, being a database process industry, right? So you need to have all this data and you need to have the knowledge in order to act upon this data. This is very formulaic. Now, in my Palantir video, we had this video of this AIG employee who said that in order to do these underwriting processes, you need to sort of gauge and combine insights from a lot of different places. So you need to get PDF files from a lot of different places. Now with AI, being cloud native and being AI first, you have all this data combined in one place. So this allows you to sort of be more efficient in terms of finding and allocating resources and yielding good results based on the proprietary data set that you already have. Now, having taken a look at how big the opportunity is for insurance, it is a very large market and Lemonade is a very small actor in this market. I think we should also sort of gauge how inefficient traditional incumbent insurance companies are. Now, Berkshire Hathaway and Geico and all these traditional incumbent insurance companies run on a lot of different computer systems. They run on 500 different systems where they all have to go into each of these systems, taking PDF files, copying them, scanning them, and getting the relevant knowledge out of them. When you're AI first, when you're cloud first, all this is gathered in one place, and all these systems communicate with each other. The efficiency gains you get from this are immense. Now, I mentioned that for AIG, it used to take 3 weeks to sort of combine 72% of the data you needed in order to do these underwritings. But with the power of AI, with the power of AIP, they could do it in 3 hours and get 92% of all the relevant data. So it just sort of exponentiates the unit economics. You get much more out of an hour spent than you do without AI. Another very interesting thing about Lemonade that sort of is very good to sort of gauge the difference between Lemonade and incumbent insurance players is their basic unit economics. So, how much money do they earn from each respective employee? How much do they have to spend on new employees? Let's take a look at legacy insurance. All right, so for older legacy insurance companies, they have to scale their employee headcount as their revenue scales. So as their number of policies scale, they will have to increase their amount of employees in order to keep up with this revenue growth, in order to keep up with this growth in policies, right? So Progressive Insurance is a sort of more legacy company. It has to hire 12,000 employees this year. So we have this legacy company that has to hire 12,000 employees, while we also have Lemonade that, as we can see here, is able to grow their in-force premiums, so their policies, right? The money they gain from their policies, but also the number of respective policies, while keeping their operating growth relatively constant. So we see a completely fundamentally different level of scalability in these two different business models, right? So we have the legacy companies that have to increase their headcount so they can sustain growth, while we have Lemonade that can keep on growing in terms of their in-force premiums and their policies, but not necessarily increase their operating expenses to a high degree. So once again, let's hear a clip of Daniel, the CEO, talking about this and hearing what he has to say.
And indeed, as noteworthy as our loss ratio progression has been these past 2 years, during that time, my gross profit has surged by 261%. The full significance of this comes into sharp relief when we pair it with the fact that during the same time, our underlying expenses increased by single digits. This means that we've essentially transformed our variable expense into fixed costs. That's extraordinary. It's the hallmark of an AI-first company, and it is the reason why our gross profit trend line charts our path to profit and beyond.
So by leveraging the power of artificial intelligence, this company is able to scale in a very different level. We will also later in this video look into their ability to exponentiate their unit economics. I've said there's a lot of time, but fundamentally, to its core, Lemonade is a company that can scale without adding new employees, without increasing their operating expenses. In other words, they have incredible operating leverage that will increase their margins over time, that will increase their revenue, and that will increase their free cash flows over time. So the reason why I'm showing you this is to illustrate that traditional insurance companies grow linearly, right? So as they increase their revenue, as they increase their in-force premiums, they have to increase their headcount. Their personnel, their capacity constrains their ability to grow. Whereas Lemonade is able to exponentiate their revenues. They're able to grow exponentially in terms of their in-force premiums while keeping their headcount constant. This means that we see an exponentiation of their dollar economics, of their unit economics. Their margins increase over time. This AI native, AI based way of running insurance also just fundamentally changes the way you can grow. So, not being limited by your headcount, having each person in the personnel being able to be more efficient while also handling more claims. Now there's AI that handles a lot of Lemonade claims, right? But each employee gets much more effective. So what this allows them to do is to just grow their growth rate. They can increase their growth rate percentage-wise. So we've seen it accelerate for a very long time. For 6 quarters in a row, they've grown their growth rate. Having this AI structure really does allow you to grow your unit economics. We see the same thing with new holdings. We see Lemonade being able to decline their loss ratio. So the lower your loss ratio is as an insurance company, the better it is. Having a loss ratio of 67% means that you get to keep 33% of the money coming in. So you pay 67% of the money you get out in claims again. So this decreasing is a sign of them being better able to underwrite insurance policies while also being able to enjoy and reap the benefits monetarily, because this means their revenue growth rate increases, right? So you have this double-edged positive sword, lowering the loss ratio and also increasing your revenues. So Lemonade has a fundamental edge in relation to traditional insurance companies. We just saw that they're able to scale their revenue growth without scaling their headcount. They're able to reduce their loss ratio because they can just underwrite more efficiently, right? But what we have as a sort of threat is Lemonade's ability and status of having an absolute data advantage. So do they really have the absolute advantage with relation to data when going up and measuring it against other companies such as Geico, such as other insurance companies in America, right? Well, obviously, they have way less claims to handle. Obviously, they have way less customers. They have less policies. They have less premiums. But the thing is with Lemonade is that they are AI first. They are cloud native. They are AI native. They are built for this runway. So let me just play you a clip once again of Daniel Schreiber going into this, addressing this thing, and addressing how AI fundamentally transforms this company. Now,
we're on the walkway, the rest of the insurance companies aren't. And what I mean by that is that when GPT-5 drops, the next day I know how much more efficient our systems have become because we've just powered it, injected it with more intelligence than it had the day before. And all of our metrics improve overnight. That's what being AI first means at the moment. It means that your business is built atop of AI, and as AI rises, it raises your business and everything gets better. Your automation metrics, everything gets better. That's the way our business is built. I'm not aware of any other insurance company that's built that way. And that's why all of these investments ultimately, from our narrow perspective, manifest as just a better Lemonade, cheaper policies, bigger market share, more profitability.
Lemonade has been built to grow and scale with AI. So their product fundamentally improves as AI models improve. So Lemonade has a huge advantage in terms of being an AI company. They are benefiting from AI growing, right? And they're benefiting from AI scaling. Another thing is Daniel's words and Daniel's perspectives in terms of the revenue being attributable almost 100% to AI. Let's hear what he has to say about this.
Okay. Would you say that every dollar in your revenue base, okay, is AI related? Like you could say this is our revenue base 100% AI associated.
Close enough. We spend a lot on advertising ourselves. Yeah. Close to 90% of our dollar allocations is done by AI. Mm-hmm. Every customer that comes to us with an app or our website, as soon as you come there looking for a policy, we have 50 different AI models making predictions about you. Will you churn? Will you buy? Will you claim? Will you cross-sell another policy? They use all of those predictions to decide what your lifetime value would be, discount it for the time value of money, and put a dollar amount. And then that is that one campaign that brought us that one consumer. But we have ostensibly algo trading going on where all the different campaigns and all the different territories with all the different products are competing with one another, and something like 90% of our spend is being allocated that way by AI making predictions about each campaign, each product, each territory. There's no insurance company in the world that does that. So right from the get-go, before we've even met you, we're using AI in order to decide where to spend our incremental dollar, to assess what kind of a valuable customer you come in. Then of course the onboarding is all done by chatbots. The policy is sold and served to you by chatbots. And the majority of our claims never have a human in the loop at all. Now, these are complicated things to do. You've just been burgled, or you've had a fire in your house, or your pet has cancer, or all different awful things with long vet reports or assessors or police reports. The AI churns through that stuff, and most of our claims are paid without any human in the loop at all. So you look at our life cycle, and you'd have to say, at first approximation, the answer to your question.
So while the company does not have a clear, obvious data advantage, what they do have is an AI native product, is a cloud native product that sort of grows and scales with AI scaling. Also, what we have is this company that just sort of has this lead in terms of applying AI. They have this lead in terms of already having their different systems being interconnected, having their different systems communicating. We see Geico having hundreds of different systems not communicating with each other. We saw this being the issue with AIG, having lots of different platforms not communicating with each other, right? Systems that don't communicate. Lemonade systems communicate. It will take such a long time for traditional insurance companies to sort of catch up. When speaking about AI, we see this guy, Ajit Jain, from Berkshire Hathaway, saying that they are in a state of readiness, that they are in a state of sort of trying to apply it and seeing what works in different ways, but overall being in a state of readiness, right? So these traditional companies are not fully applying and deploying AI, whereas Lemonade is, and almost 100% of their revenues are directly attributable to AI systems. So while they not necessarily have absolute data advantages, they do not have the most biggest pool of proprietary data. But what they do have is the best sort of baseline platform to be able to apply artificial intelligence and to be able to apply data. Insurance, as we heard Daniel saying, is a science of applying data, using data, deploying data in order to underwrite insurance claims, in order to underwrite insurance premiums. So these companies are limited by their physical assets, right? And how much of an asset is an employee that has to be paid X amount of dollars per year, per month, per hour, right? As opposed to an AI system that allows each existing employee to increase their productivity over time. So are these employees at Geico, at Progressive, are they assets or are they liabilities? Another thing that I really love with Lemonade is their ability to be very careful and very sort of conservative with who they allow as customers. If they deem you as being a bad customer, they won't allow you in. Also, they don't insure houses in sort of dangerous areas such as California and other places. Let's hear what the CEO has to say.
We're really about understanding the risk represented by a person. And for different policies that may be more or less dominant as the thing that you're truly underwriting. So in renters insurance, car insurance, even pet insurance, you're really not underwriting the weather almost at all. You're really underwriting the person or the pet. Homeowners insurance is much more exposed to the vagaries of the weather. And we've really avoided the places worst hit. So we don't offer home insurance in Florida at all.
Yep.
In California, we avoid fire zones, which is an increasing amount of the country. So we recognize that that's not an area of advantage for us, and we focus on areas that we play best.
So when you do an insurance policy, it's sort of about gauging the risk of each individual customer. Having AI models to gauge these risks for each individual customer really has a lot of positive implications. Now, insurance is a very difficult place to act in because you have two-thirds of the customers being what you would usually call good customers, and then you have a third of customers being bad customers. So the two-thirds pay for the one-third that are bad customers, that live in these dangerous areas, that are hazardous drivers, that just are strange insurance companies, right? So you have two-thirds paying for one-third. When you have these systems sort of gauging the risk profile of each individual customer, you sort of eliminate this one-third of bad customers. So you have more accurate pricing, you retain more money, not taking on risk when you do these sort of insurance policies for each individual customer. You assess their risks, you don't take them in if they are too risky. Then you sort of have a more optimal economic position because you don't have to pay back as much. The main point of friction with insurance is that it's basically impossible to gauge what comes out. It's easy to gauge what comes in. You can just sort of run some projections, right? But you can't gauge what goes out. You have no way of knowing what goes out. You have natural catastrophes, you have car crashes, you have all these things. But Lemonade sort of eliminates a lot of these things by measuring these things, by not entering those markets. Now, with car insurance, we could get into this, but Lemonade takes a whole lot of measures in order to sort of better price car insurance. What Lemonade does is that they sort of tailor the price for your policy directly to you. So they tailor the price directly to you. You don't pay a flat universal fee. You pay a fee that's based on your risk profile. So you don't have to pay for everyone else. You don't have to pay for the bad customers, but you also get more direct pricing. All in all, creating a more personified, personalized insurance experience, both with pricing, platformizing the whole experience, right? So Lemonade really does have some interesting counter positioning here. As related to the whole market. They use and leverage AI to gauge your risk profile, and then they price you based on that. Really understanding how AI allows this company to grow and scale and really improve leads us to better being able to sort of understand their economics. So Lemonade is not yet what you would usually call profitable. They do turn out free cash flow, but it's adjusted, right? But what we have is their revenue really growing by quite a lot. So we see them really accelerating their revenue growth here around Q2 2024. Now they're also getting into improving their stand in car insurance. They're getting into house insurance. But what they really did was this whole concept of growing with the customer. People who are digital, native digital people are more less profitable insurance customers, right? Because they don't necessarily have this house, they don't have the car, but they might have a dog, they might have themselves. But what Lemonade does is they focus in on gaining and retaining these customers over the very long term by increasing the lifetime value. So what we'll later see is their ability to return economies of scale. So basically improving the price of the product, cutting costs of the product for each customer because they're better able due to AI scaling to risk these policies, to price these policies. But as they scale and increase their revenue, as their sort of operating expenses don't grow, they're able to return these costs back to the customer. Actually, let me just play you this clip now.
Against this backdrop, it's worth remembering that while declining loss ratios and expanding gross margins are a thrill, they are not per se what we are solving for. As I explained at some length during our Investor Day 1 year ago, the metric we are looking to maximize is gross profit dollars. Loss ratios always affect gross profit, but not always as a simple counter movement whereby lower loss ratios yield higher gross profit. In reality, the relationship is non-monotonic, meaning that often a higher loss ratio will yield higher gross profit. The underlying mechanics are obvious when you think about it. Given the incredible price sensitivity in insurance, each percentage reduction in price can often yield outsized returns in terms of conversion and retention. Lower prices worsen gross margins and loss ratio, yes, but the attendant boost in revenue often more than makes up for that.
So for each dollar the customer saves, it gradually improves their insurance experience, right? So it increases their relationship and sort of ingrains their relationship with these insurance companies. But my point is that they're able to accelerate this growth, and they'll probably further accelerating it because they are so good at retaining their customers, because they're so good at gaining and focusing on the customers for the long term. Another wonderful way to gauge the unit economics and exponentiation of their unit economics is just by looking at their cost of handling claims, so the LAE ratio. So what we see is this ratio declining by a lot over the last couple of years, over the last couple of quarters. It has declined, it has almost halved. What is interesting is that they will aim to have this once again as the company doubles and doubles in size. So let's hear what management has to say about this.
Take this further and expect to cut the LAE ratio in half yet again, in parallel with our next doubling of the business.
So they'll be able to cut their LAE in half, so their cost of handling claims in half, as the company doubles in size. So the unit economics of this company fundamentally exponentially improve, leading to a more profitable company. So I hope you guys really see why I'm so interested in this company now. This is obviously investing and this is the future, so things might go wrong. But what I'm saying is the fundamentals are aligning very, very well in order for this company to grow and exponentially do so. Every aspect and every parameter of this company improving in its unit economics. Cost of handling claims by line of business is overall just going down. So homeowners, pet, car, and everything else is just declining over time. And previously we also took a look at their gross loss ratio. So the amount of money that they have to pay back to their customers declining over time. So what you have is revenue acceleration. What you have is them being able to grow their revenue without having to grow their expenses by that much, right? you have them paying out less of the premiums that they collect, while also sort of being better at unit economics in terms of lowering the cost of handling each claim. So each claim handled becomes less expensive and more affordable for them. Yeah, as I said, the unit economics and the fundamentals for this company are lining up in order for them to increase their value proposition for their customers. As I just said, with them being able to share economics of scale with their customers and also exponentially improving the creations of monetary value creation for their investors. So Lemonade is paradoxically enough a company that as it scales becomes cheaper to run. We saw this with their LAE. So the bigger they get, the cheaper the company gets to run, the cheaper it is to serve customers. Also, we saw it with their loss ratio. So the bigger the company gets, the more it saves per actual customer. Now, I would like to play a clip from management talking about LAE being something that benefits from scale economies.
It should be noted, though, that this metric is influenced by economies of scale. And so the larger the insurer, the more they are expected to have a good LAE ratio. For reference, large carriers typically report around 9% LAE.
So, as I said, paradoxically enough, as this company increases its scale, it becomes cheaper to run. Now, what happens is, as I mentioned earlier, this leads to high rates of operating leverage. When this company becomes profitable, when it starts churning out real cash flows, they will exponentiate these cash flows because as they increase, as the number of policies increase, as the enforced premiums increase, they will get cheaper to run because they improve their data, they improve their algorithms in order to assess risks and so on and so forth. As we saw also, as they increase in scale, as they increase in size, they will return those benefits of scale economics back to their customers. We just saw a clip of managing speaking about this. So as the company becomes more profitable, increases in scale, it will be cheaper to run for the platform, but also be cheaper to be a customer for good customers. Now, in order to gauge the fact that this company is opposed to other incumbents, an actual loved company, I would start out by using this quote from Jeff Bezos from Amazon's 2020 annual shareholder letter. So he says, if you want to be successful in business, in life actually, you have to create more than you consume. Your goal should be to create value for everyone you interact with. Any business that does not create value for those it touches, even if it appears successful on the surface, isn't long for this world. It's on the way out. In order to gauge value creation for Lemonade, we can take a very easy measure of their net promoter score. So it's basically a metric that measures how likely customers are to recommend a product to other people. So basically, if people will recommend it, and this is a high rate of recommendation. 70 to 60, 70 on the net promoter score, where industry incumbents have net promoter scores of about 20. So, as opposed to these incumbent insurance companies, Lemonade is actually a beloved company. It's a company that consumers actually recommend to their friends, recommend to peers, right? So what you have is a direct measure of how well liked this company is on their net promoter score. It says here significantly above industry average of under 20. So we have this net promoter score that's much higher for Lemonade. Why is that? Well, we can go back to this and we can see that any business that doesn't create value for those it touches, even if it appears successful on the surface, isn't long for this world. Jeff Bezos has another interesting quote where he says, "But there is no rest for the weary. I constantly remind our employees to be afraid, to wake up every morning terrified, not of our competition, but of our customers. Our customers have made our business what it is. They are the ones with whom we have a relationship, and they are the ones to whom we owe a great obligation. And we consider them to be loyal to us right up until the second that someone else offers them a better service." What Lemonade does is that they offer a fundamentally better service. They offer personalized prices. They offer better prices. They have this structure where you don't have to pay for the bad third. It's only the two good thirds on the platform. Also, the price that you pay is personalized. It's not universal, so it's more tailored to you. It is a company that will decrease its prices for insurance as they scale. As the platform becomes cheaper to run, the platform becomes cheaper for its customers. These are very interesting value propositions, and these align very well for this company to capture a lot of value because they actually create value and cause happiness for their users, as opposed to these other incumbent industry leaders like UNH. UNH is a universally hated company, right? Everyone knows this. Lemonade is a beloved company. It is a beloved service. We saw that with their net promoter score. Now, a good way to conceptualize this idea of a company being loved, especially a platform marketplace company, is this idea of creating happiness. I've spoken about this article a lot of times by Sarah Tavil, but she basically says that the moat and what drives value creation for platform companies is their ability to create happiness for their consumers. She says, in other words, happiness, not scale, is your moat. So for these big incumbent insurance companies, their moat is their scale. They have a lot of customers, they have a lot of data, they have a lot of scale, but they are fundamentally high actors of causing friction. So they cause a lot of friction for their users. Lemonade, a lot of claims are paid out instantly. They're paid out very, very fast. These claims can take weeks, months to get, and also even like lawsuits, they cause a lot of frictions for their customers. They have moats. They have scale as their moat. They don't cause happiness, they cause friction. Lemonade has creation of happiness as their moat. They have a large proprietary data set in terms of scale as their moat, right? And they also have the ability to apply this as their moat. Industry incumbents don't have this mode of applicability, but Lemonade does. But what I mean is, Lemonade has a very interesting ability to create happiness. We can see that. We can see this in how customer centric they are. It says it everywhere, regardless of where you read about the company. It says here, we worked hard to delight customers from day one. It also says here in their 10K filing, it says here, we believe we're making insurance more delightful, more affordable, and more precise. When you read through the filings of this company, it's very clear to see that they're focused on delighting the customer. They're focused on making insurance more precise, more delightful, more affordable. I've covered these things. They make it more affordable by tailoring the product. They make it more affordable by directly going in and assessing your risk profile so you pay a personal fee, not a universal one. You get lower prices as they scale. You become cheaper to serve as they scale. They can serve you easier, cheaper, and so on as they scale. This company becomes better as it scales, and it becomes better at delighting its customers. It is also visible in this flywheel here. So it says here, delight customers. That's the first thing. Grow fast. So then they get predictive data as they grow. They get more data to analyze. As Daniel said in the first clip that I showed you, insurance is a very data-driven industry, right? So it's all about interpreting data, analyzing data, and so on in order to yield better results. So then the machine learns better and it delights customers better because it tailors prices more well. It becomes more affordable. It becomes more personalized. It becomes more platformized. So this whole flywheel is what creates value for Lemonade. As soon as this part gets taken out, this delight customers, they will go back to the incumbents. They have to cause happiness. They have to create happiness. Now, we could cover a lot of different things about Lemonade. We could get into car insurance, as I mentioned. They have a lot of different initiatives in order to increase their monetary income of car insurance in order to better create a car insurance product. They have this whole idea of growing with the customers that I shortly got into. So we could go into a lot of different elements with Lemonade, but what's core to the thesis is their ability to delight customers. What this then leads to is actually them increasing in popularity. So as we can see here from 2016 to August 2019, the Google search trend for Lemonade actually increased. So it becomes more popular, it becomes a more sought after product because they have this ability to fundamentally delight their customers. So all in all, I think Lemonade is a very interesting company. It offers very interesting value propositions both to investors and to customers. For investors, it's this exponentiator of unit economics. As it grows, it becomes cheaper to run. As it grows, it becomes more and more profitable. It has huge amounts of operating leverage. We just saw this. For customers, it is a great product because it's personalized. It's a tailored price. It's a more precise price, right? And as they grow and scale, they will decrease the prices. You don't have to pay for the one bad third of customers. It's a more tailored product. We could also get into all their initiatives in terms of philanthropy, donating money, and so on and so forth, but I'm not getting into that today. Today, I'm just sort of laying out my thesis for why I think Lemonade is an interesting company. I'm not saying I'm going to buy this company now. There are a lot of risks related to this company. I did cover the fact that they're not yet profitable, right? So they don't really churn out profit in the same way that other profitable companies are. They don't churn out owner earnings, is what I'm trying to say, but they will probably get there. I think they will get there because they possess these very interesting fundamental developments that allow them to get there. Also, they might not have the absolute data advantage in terms of incumbent companies, but I've countered this argument by saying they have the best possible platform in order to actually yield and use their data. So they have a mode in terms of applicability of data. All their systems speak to each other. Incumbent systems don't speak to each other. So yeah, that's my thesis on Lemonade. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.